Thank you very much, and I'll try to make some adjustments so that I don't repeat what has already been said. But I want to start by saying that age is a very important issue in terms of protection of children, because we need to know the age of the child. We may have the law, but if we don't know the age of the child, then the child will continue to experience exploitation and abuse. The second point I want to make is that while Pakistan has most of the laws aligned to the Convention on the Rights of the Child, which puts the age of a child as any person below the age of 18, we see that equal protection for different children is not provided for. So there are quite a number of laws where you find the age for girls is different. If we look, for example, at marriage, in terms of marriage, girls are allowed by law to marry at 16 and boys at 18. That's not equal protection of the law. As you know from the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, all people should be equally protected by law. The next point I want to make is that one step towards harmonizing different laws is to align these laws to the international laws that we have already signed for the Convention on the Rights of the Child, the CEDAW. For example, in General Comment number 7, on implementing child rights in early childhood, it is required that there must be consistency in the legal provisions across different legislations. So the fact that the different laws have been identified to be inconsistent is, to me, a crisis in constitutionalism which needs to be addressed. Even where the minimum age in the different laws is identified, that same minimum age must be the same for all children, regardless of their sex, age, or social status, or wherever they come from. Before I come to the specifics, I just want to rush quickly to what I would recommend in this case. I think one way, and some countries like Uganda, Ethiopia, and others have done, is to have a comprehensive children's law that puts everything together. It's difficult to have inconsistencies in one law. So having a children's law is important, and I think Punjab has started on that. There is a draft children's law, a draft children's bill that was moving very fast last year, but I think the speed has reduced and it needs to be picked up again. The next thing is, I think, in order to be able to have uniform legislation, is to strengthen birth registration. In Pakistan, only 34% of people have their birth registered. That means over 2/3 are not registered. And you cannot talk about age when you don't know when somebody was born. You cannot say this girl is below 16 or below 18 unless you have their birth registered. Now, let me look at, I have identified, I have already spoken about child marriage, that there is, in terms of marriage, girls and boys have different ages that are permitted. Girls at 16, boys at 18, but the international laws that we have, that Pakistan has signed, say 18. So the age of marriage needs to be fixed in all laws at 18 for boys and for girls. And actually, as a result of this, we see that there are, for example, 14% of young women of 15 to 19 in Pakistan are already married. And when you look at the 20 to 24 years, you find that 21% of them were already married. So the UN Committee on the Rights of the Child has made concluding observations recommending that Pakistan must address the issue of marriage being fixed at 18 for both boys and girls. I want to go to labor, admission of children to employment. The law states that this should be at 14, but at the same time, the law in Pakistan states that all children of up to 16 years must be able to have compulsory education. And now the question is, how can children of 15 and 16 be able to have compulsory education when children are allowed to work at 14? That is an inconsistency that undermines the commitment to have universal education. And as a result, we have in Pakistan over 22 million out-of-school children, and child labor is one of them. Just last week, the Punjab child labor survey was launched, and we see that up to 16% of children below 14 are engaged in child labor. And on child labor again, I want to look at the law. The national law on child labor indicates that children of 14 can actually be involved in hazardous work. That is inconsistent with the ILO Convention 182 on the worst forms of child labor. So the national law says at 14 you can be involved in hazardous work, but in Punjab, the law says to be involved in hazardous work, you have to be 18. So you see there is already an inconsistency between the provincial law and the national law in terms of admission to hazardous work. And still the child labor survey that was launched last week indicates that in Punjab, children, 30.8% of children of 15 to 17 are involved in hazardous work, but the provincial law says should be 18. The national law says at 14. Probably the contradiction between the national law on access to hazardous work and the provincial law might be responsible for this. The other question might be an issue of enforcement. If the law says 18 in Punjab and a third of the children are involved in hazardous work, then there is an issue of enforcement. So my colleagues, I think, will cover other issues, but I want to emphasize that there is urgent need to harmonize all these legislations, and birth registration is very, very important as part of civil registration. Otherwise, we cannot prove that the child has already made 14 or hasn't made 14, or this child is 16 or less than 16 for them to be able to get married, for example. Thank you very much.